All right, morning everyone. My name is Anurag Gurtu. I'm a technical marketing engineer. The reason I've been asked to go first is this is the best product you'll hear all about today. So I know after this statement, my fellow TMEs are going to beat me, but well, that's the truth. This is the best product. So what I'll be talking about is Unified Computing System E-Series. So you must be familiar with the UCS product name, which is our basically the best-in-class servers. And what we did was we basically got a magician in and we asked him to look at a C-series and start hammering the C-series and make it as small as possible. So this is basically what he got the C-series down to. And we basically then thought, what should we do? But since we are part of the routing business unit, the best solution was to just pop these blades inside our routing portfolio. So you see a router over there, you basically pop these blades inside a router, and that becomes our product. So in a nutshell, what we are trying to accomplish. Well, we are trying to accomplish a very simple fact. We are trying to provide customers with a consolidation solution. So if customers want to basically run their applications, well, they have multiple options. They can go with a centralized architecture, they can go with a cloud architecture. But some of the applications don't just make sense to be centralized. Now, what could be an example? Let's say you want to do asset management software, you want to do patch management. Well, would you rather have it centralized or would you rather have it decentralized when most of your assets are distributed in remote branch offices? Well, if that's the situation or that's one of your concerns, you would want to have it decentralized. Let's take another example. You want to give leases to assets which are coming on the network. For example, you guys all came in to this room and you basically hit the access point and you want a lease, you want an IP address. Would you rather prefer the lease coming fast from a local access point which can serve a DHCP, or would you rather wait for a cloud-based service to give you a DHCP lease? So some of the applications will need decentralization. And if you are thinking about decentralization, you anyways would have an ISR router sitting in your branch office. And then it makes sense, well, if I'm looking at decentralization, if I'm looking at consolidation, why can't an ISR G2 box serve different applications? So that was the market we were trying to address. And that's why we thought, well, let's build a server class blade and let's basically load it inside a routing platform, use industry standard components, and then have applications or any applications run on it. Now, how does this blade compare to other blades or other servers you would find in the industry? So let's look at the spec of this blade. The first part is there are two different flavors to this blade. We have the single wide, which is a half-width blade that goes in an entry-level routing platform, which is our 2911. And then we have the double wide blade. Now that goes also on an entry-level platform, but that starts from 2921. So these are the two different form factors of the blade. The best thing about this blade is it's using the latest chipsets from different vendors. For example, Intel released its Sandy Bridge CPU, and we have Sandy Bridge CPUs. Broadcom released its latest drivers for Ethernet, and we have the latest drivers for Ethernet. LSI came up with its latest driver for RAID controller, and we have the latest driver for RAID controller. So if you look at the spec of a single wide, we are offering 4 cores with hyper-threading, so you have 8 cores. We support enhanced features like turbo boost. We can spin the CPU really fast if you have to finish a workload. We have features like EIST, which stands for Enhanced Step Speed Technology. And basically what that means is we can control the gigahertz of the CPU, and when we find there's not much enough load, we can slow the CPU down to conserve power. The main aspect of these blades is we are very power efficient. Now, if you look at this blade, which I have, which is a single wide, and if I have to ask you to guess the power consumption, and you don't look at the slide, then this blade consumes 65 watts at peak load, which is not typical to any server that would be hosted in a branch office. Now, what about other footprints? So we have the latest chipsets, which is the Sandy Bridge Intel Core Xeons. What about memory density? Well, the smallest blade can go up to 16 gigs in RAM. It can support up to 2 terabytes storage with a SATA-based drive. Well, typically, if you look at defense, they have pretty intense conditions in which they want to run servers in. So we do support SSD-based drives. We support SAS-based drives, and not only that, we support self-encrypting drives, which have a hardware-based encryption on the drives themselves. If you look at redundancy or high availability, we support a RAID 0, which is basically striping on 2 drives, as well as RAID 1, which is mirroring on the drives. And what that means is a server guy can actually pop in and pop out the drives if they have failed, and the drive replication will kick in automatically. They don't have to worry about an application going down just because one of the drive has gone down. The next thing on the system is basically it can provide both full lights out capability. Any traditional server or a classic server provides you with lights out capability. Like for example, HP has ILO, UCS has SIMC. We have the same code base, and architecturally we are identical to the architecture that the UCS-C series has. And think of it like you are compressing the C series into a very small footprint, you're making it extremely power efficient, and you're hosting it inside a routing platform. In addition to that, by default, the system comes with 3 gig cards. 2 cards on the back panel, which basically provide you with different types of connectivity, a layer 3 and a layer 2. And then there's one interface on the front panel, which again provides you with either layer 3 or a layer 2 connectivity. So if you're not wowed with the specs of the single wide, then we have the specs of the double wide. So what does the double wide give you? Well, double wide again uses the Intel Sandy Bridge, which is the Intel Xeon series, but it gives you 2 flavors. You can go with 6 cores or you can go with 4 cores. Now we have hyperthreading enabled. What that means is effectively you get 8 vCPUs or you get 12 vCPUs. From a memory density perspective, we actually start from 8 gigs and now we can go up to 48 gigs in memory density. From storage perspective, we can now go up to 3 terabytes of storage. From a RAID controller, we can do not only RAID 0, RAID 1, but we can also do RAID 5. There are 2 SD cards on the system in case you want to have additional storage, you want to pop in an SD card and install an operating system, or you want to take an operating system on a USB stick and then just plug it in and then boot off a USB stick. All these features are available on not only the single wide, but also on the double wide. From a routing perspective, if you think you can actually pop in 16 cores, physical cores, you can have up to 64 gigs of memory, and you can have up to 8 terabytes of storage. If you want to max out the memory footprint, you can actually do 14 cores, you can go up to 80 gigs of memory and 7 terabytes of storage. Now think about that much compute which is available in a branch office for not only hosting applications like DNS, DHCP, or other applications like asset management. When you have so much compute, there are other appliances that you are also thinking about displacing. For example, when Cisco is trying to build so much compute in their basically every routing platform, the portfolio of applications increases drastically. Now, what can be some of the applications that can be made available? You are aware about WAS, like for WAN optimization. You can virtualize WAS and run it on these blades.
Will we be aware of WAS for a while?
I missed your question.
Well, I mean, it's a WAS now, but will we continue to be aware of WAS on this?
You will be aware of WAS on this blade, yes.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
That's
Yes.
Yeah, I get it. So, Cisco is extremely committed to WAS.
That's the question.
Visibility. We have in the router team, it's our largest investment. In the service router group, hundreds of people, a couple of hundred people, and we are really looking at how we integrate WAN optimization as part of routing more and more, because in TCP, if you take TCP protocols and while they're moving and how we can integrate it much closer with routing, I think there are a lot of things to do as well. The application visibility to integrate that, because we have WAS application aware, the router application aware, so as architecturally we can do a lot of things which provides new value and differentiates us from our competition. Yes, you will see this, absolutely.
All right, so not only will you see WAS, but you will see a virtualized wireless LAN controller. You will see a virtualized video surveillance module. You would see virtualized NAM. You will see virtualized call manager. So what you're seeing is a lot of Cisco technologies which were available in either appliance form factor or a software form factor, which used to run on servers, would be available virtualized on this platform.
Pause for a moment. Sorry, are you saying that the voice business units will be certifying Call Manager to run on the UCS Express in an ISR?
On UCS-E series, yes. So the solution is already available for just DoD as of now. And they are looking at making it generally available for customers. We actually
That's going to be an enormous, sorry for saying that, but it's going to be an enormous, very interesting technology trend, that one. Because now the resources are virtualized within the router, right? And so instead of us as a technology group taking Cisco technology and put it on a proprietary blades, this is going to be available, that resource from everybody, from a resource. And virtualization technology makes that happen. So I think there will be more groups in Cisco, companies outside Cisco who wants to enable that technology on these type of platforms. So I see that as a very new revolution, which is very obvious in the market we are in, from the technology and the market of that perspective.
right.
Are you doing any application classification?
Application classifications like
In-bar,
ABC,
in-bar
in-bar.
series.
Yeah, so those features are available in the routing portfolio. So in-bar, in-bar 2, ABC, or application visibility and control. They are vendors like OpNet, NetScout, NetForensics, NetIQ, which do those sort of feature sets. And since this is basically a commodity, I mean, you call it a commodity server, right? There's nothing architecturally proprietary on this system. It's a commodity server, and with the different operating systems or hypervisor flavors it can support, partners can actually take their applications and host them without like modifying their applications, right? That's the advantage of it. Most of the partners or ISVs or SIs, they have applications which are now being delivered in a virtualized form factor. And we support different flavors of virtualization, whether the virtualization is coming from VMware using ESXi or vSphere, if it's coming from Microsoft using Hyper-V, if it's coming from Red Hat using KVM, if it's using a proprietary virtualization like Oracle Linux, or if it's coming from Citrix using Xen. We support all the virtualization technologies. We can also go bare metal. So if you have a proprietary application or an appliance and you want to convert this blade into an appliance, you can convert that blade using a bare metal option. The most important aspect to having a blade or a compute entity inside a routing platform is domain management. Now, who's going to manage this blade is the first question that every enterprise customer would ask Cisco. We made sure that the domain management is completely isolated. No overstepping of toes from a network guy on a server guy or a server guy to a network guy. Now, how do we do that? Basically, we offer domain management for every entity. If you look at the compute side of the blade, compute side basically means I'm a server guy. If I'm a server guy and if I'm responsible for managing this blade, how do I do it? Well, the first question is, do you support lights out management? And the answer is yes, we support lights out management. Do you use an open framework to support lights out management like IPMI v2? The answer is yes, we support open framework to have lights out management using IPMI v2. Do you support management using the standard tools which Cisco users are familiar with on the data center side like SIMC or Cisco Integrated Management Controller? The answer is yes, we support Cisco Integrated Management Controller. What about centralized management of these blades from a remote site? Well, we are on the roadmap to be delivered for a UCS Central Manager to take in support for these blades as well. Not only this, we added additional functionality since we are sitting inside a routing platform. If a server guy feels that he needs to be solely responsible for managing these blades, what can he do? Well, he can actually go and disable the front panel power button. Why is he doing that? Because he knows the network guy is going to walk in and he's going to mess around by pressing the power button because he owns the routing platform. But the server guy can actually lock down this button so that nobody, even if you press it, nothing happens. Not only that, the server guy can actually completely lock down the system where any iOS commands which are executed against these blades are blocked. For example, a network guy cannot go and session into the blade. That command gets disabled. A network guy cannot change the IP address of this blade. The command is disabled. A network guy cannot install anything on its blade. The commands are disabled. So any task the network guy would like to do to mess around with the server admin are disabled. Now, what about?
server admins? Never.
I know network guys don't like that.
Server admins are messed up on their own.
Okay.
You know?
Let him hang
Yeah,
himself.
you guys don't need to help us. You know?
All right, but if network guys are owners of this blade, for an example, where they are responsible for installing virtual VAS, or they're responsible for installing virtual wireless LAN controller, or virtualized CUCM and things like that, then they need the full-blown management stack in the iOS, and that's what we provided as well. If a network guy is completely responsible for managing this blade, they don't have to learn any new tools. They don't have to go with lights out management software, or they don't have to learn the SIMC software which is coming from a server team because they are not responsible for that domain. So how do they do that? Is using iOS CLIs or Cisco Prime NCS or Cisco networking tools that they have been using to manage routing platforms, right? And basically I covered this part where the server guy, I know the slides are a little dark, can actually click on log down iOS changes. It's a simple radio button that has to be clicked, and every command that was executing or could have been executed from the iOS is completely taken down. This is how we address the server and the network admin boundary. But what about the virtualization guys? Because there's another layer of technology that can be hosted on this platform. The virtual admins can actually use their centralized tools like vCenter, vCloud Director, Zen Center, System Center for Microsoft, or System Center for even Red Hat KVM. So they can use their standard tools to manage these blades centrally, right? So it's basically a win-win-win situations for all three admins. Now the last win statement is actually for the enterprise customers. Well, what do I get if I actually get this blade inside my routing platform? You basically optimize your cost. And how do you optimize the cost? Because if you get a third-party server, you have to worry about a support contract, right? An annual maintenance contract for the hardware, which usually costs about $200 to $300 per asset per year. In our case, the support cost is $0 because this blade goes inside the routing platform. What does that mean? The SmartNet of the router covers the blade, and the SmartNet cost doesn't increase whether you get 0 CPUs or you max out to 16 CPUs inside the routing platform. You get 0 gigs of memory or you max out the system to have 80 gigs of memory. The SmartNet cost is identical. Not only the SmartNet cost is covering the hardware support cost of this blade, we are making a further step by offering customers the virtualization cost to be absorbed by Cisco. And no other vendor actually is being able to do that. We tell enterprise customers, if you buy a VMware license from Cisco, the SmartNet, the support of VMware ESXi will also be covered by Cisco. You don't have to pay any additional cost to maintain and support ESXi. That's a tremendous amount of savings if you start looking at the number of assets you would replace with these blade servers per branch office, and you start multiplying the number of branch offices you have for an enterprise. The savings actually runs in millions of dollars.
Is there a particular license or anything that's required on the host router for this?
No, base license. You don't have to have any incremental cost added on the routing platform to support these blades.
So it's just the cost of the blade.
Just the cost of the blade.
And I'm assuming you're going to support the VMware instance as long as the SmartNet contract's maintained.
We will support the hypervisor. Applications going on top of the hypervisor are completely dependent on the OEM vendor or the SI or the vendor who's basically building those apps. For example, if you run Microsoft as a virtual machine on the hypervisor, which is VMware ESXi, support for virtual machine, which is Microsoft operating system, is done by Microsoft. But the support of ESXi technology and lore is all covered by Cisco.
What about other hypervisors? Are we going to be seeing support for support and being able to consolidate that support and purchasing for open source as well as Hyper-V?
That's something we are looking at, where we are adding support for Citrix, Zen, Red Hat, Oracle, Linux, and Microsoft.
Okay.
As of now, it's not released, but that's something we are looking at.
When you say when you say support, is it just does that include software updates?
It
Do I pick
includes
up-
software updates.
So Cisco will distribute new versions of ESXi to me
Well, Cisco will point you to download the new versions of ESXi from VMware, but the support will be covered by Cisco TAC.
Okay. You guys will issue license keys and stuff like that?
Yes, we
okay.
issue license keys. So when you buy the license for vSphere from Cisco, we actually give you a license key straight from Cisco, but we obtain a bunch of, like we have thousands of license keys coming from VMware through an indirect path to
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
So we host them.
Okay.
Will there be a Cisco tax put onto the VMware license? For example, I can buy an Enterprise Plus for $7,000 Australian.
Yes.
Will I be paying $12,000-$13,000 through buying it through Cisco, or will you match? Will you just not take anything on top of that?
Well, actually, it's the other way around.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, the license that we give for vCenter, which is our vCenter supported ESXi host, is $11.95 list, which is slightly cheaper than what VMware sells. Well, why is it cheaper? I mean, you raised an eyebrow, right? Why is it cheaper? Because there are certain feature sets like advanced features, for example, DRS and vMotion, we would disable in these entities. Now the question is, why do you disable them? This is a branch office focused technology. There are certain features which sound extremely exciting, like ISA-SCSI support. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. Do you actually will have a LUN in your branch office? Not really. So why do you have to pay for those features? That's our
Yeah,
concept.
that's like one of the base features. Disabling vMotion basically just removed all of my desire for this.
So what we do in that case, we tell the enterprise customers, you have enterprise licensing agreements with VMware because you have data centers running ESXi.
Yeah, but that just erased the whole SmartNet thing.
for ESXi. That's true, just for ESXi piece.
Okay.
But the SmartNet for the compute still stays there.
Okay.
If there are certain advanced features which the customers
That's
ask,
why my eyes went, uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
so you're-
I was
you're-
waiting for
you're
the
saying
catch, you know,
SmartNet
and
on
that's like
ES
a giant freaking catch.
You're saying
you know?
SmartNet on ESXi, not the full-blown ESX. ESXi being the free one.
yes,
No.
foundation.
Starting with 5.0, there is no such thing as ESX anymore. It's
Yeah.
all
It's
ESX.
all
I beg
ESXi.
your pardon, sorry.
ESXi.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say, I thought ESXi was free.
We support
Well,
it.
it still is free, and there
There's
are
a free
limitations
version.
to
It's
it,
limited to
Yeah.
certain
but
things. You know.
there's no such thing as a heavyweight hypervisor installation.
Cool.
from
No,
VMware.
it's all right.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I mean, I think that where I see the product strategy on this is take all the little appliancey things, which used to be all over your network, make them virtual machines, create a platform integrated with the router. All the little appliancey virtual machines now run over it, and one of the big challenges I think we've seen with when Cisco takes something physical and makes it virtual is dealing with clocking issues, dealing with the ability to support vMotion and still keep a level of service. So I mean, I'm Cisco. I'm probably not going to have it enabled by default so it doesn't screw up my VUAs, my UCS, my UCS, my XYZ, right?
Yeah. And if you think customers actually want these features, like you said, vMotion is a critical feature for our branch office, then those features can be written in the
I don't think
next
so. I mean,
contract,
who's
right?
going to be vMotioning between blades in a
Part of your maintenance procedures,
Yeah.
actually.
I was
Yeah.
gonna
So
say
when
you
I
could have-
patch, when I patch
So
the
you're only going to have one. I mean, if it's a cluster and a blade in a data center, it's a different thing.
yeah, I suppose
Simple
maybe a
question.
branch office
Do you
is
use single
different.
soup
But
modules, or do you use redundant supervisor modules?
You're done.
Why do you do that?
yeah,
So you can
But
have.
that's in a data center, right?
Well, no,
But
but
I've done a branch.
in your branch gateways at a branch office, do you have one router that to provide access out, or do you have two routers?
One. Yeah,
What
so
about in your core?
in the core? It's dual, right? Redundancy,
Okay, well, a
right?
lot of people have redundancy in their devices so they can patch, so they can put firmware without interrupting services. That's really why vMotion or live migration is important when you have a system.
No, I agree. I don't know that it's really needed.
I imagine.
In such
yeah.
a
Well,
product. That's the
it's a
question.
design decision, and it turns out there's more to the design decision than that we've just learned, Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So.
So, we come off the licensing for can I run APs, access points,
Yes,
wireless?
you can run wireless
services,
LAN controllers
construction?
on this blade.
So we start getting a repair pin, and that can consolidate northbound to pick up
Exactly. You can, yeah,
policy. And
exactly. You can consolidate and manage the policy from a centralized orchestration
so
mechanism.
what that's giving is the ability to not hair ton traffic, egress out if it's got.
That's true. Yep.
That's like it's. So you said there was no iSCSI?
No, we support iSCSI.
Okay.
Well, the
What
question
the-
was whether.
Yeah, what was the iSCSI comment you made about
Licensing.
regarding licensing?
Okay. Basically, what I said was, if customers, they will start talking about advanced HBA cards and things like that because they want to have SAN storage in a branch. They'll think about SAN storage. But the next question is, well, do you think you want to invest $7,000, $8,000 per branch office to have SAN connectivity? The answer is yes. Then we support FCOE cards, a 10 gig FCOE SMP Plus card. So we have the hardware in. The question is whether you want support of those features by Cisco. If the answer is, well, we want those features in, you can definitely go to VMware and get those features and buy a license from VMware. But if that's not your requirement and you're not heavily investing like tens of thousands of dollars for extending SAN, you can get an optimized license from Cisco, and that's the market we actually want to target too.
Okay.
So there's no restriction, you cannot do those features. You can do those features. The question is who wants to support that feature, VMware or Cisco, and that gets governed by the license where you buy it from.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah. Okay.
So when I buy one of those, is the VMware license included in that?
Yes, you have an option of choosing a VMware license because you can choose a different hypervisor as well.
So I can purchase this without a VMware license?
You can purchase it absolutely blank without VMware as well. All right, so to summarize, it's basically an optimized blade server built for our routing customers to host not only applications coming from partners, SIs, ISVs, but also applications coming from Cisco itself. We support variety of hypervisors, whichever you're familiar with, from Hyper-V, Microsoft, Microsoft's Hyper-V, VMware, Red Hat, KVM, Oracle, Linux, or basically VMware by itself, or Go bare metal.